From courtside of the virtual hardwood, it's the NLSC Podcast, a weekly show for basketball gamers and hardcore hoopheads. Edge with you once again. I'm joined as always by my co-host Derek, aka Diva3. Derek, we now know that NBA The Run is coming in June 2026 for PC and the current generation of consoles. There was a closed beta last week, which you had an opportunity to partake in. You've shared some footage. You've certainly got some impressions to share. So please, tip us off.
Yeah, this episode is all about a new NBA Street-inspired game that is set to release next month, NBA The Run by Play Studios. And as you stated, I played the game early, and this is thanks to the Live King. He sent me a code so I could take part in the closed beta playtest, so thank you for that. I played for an hour and a half, which was plenty of time for me to get a good feel for the game. If you are interested in seeing the footage, I uploaded the highlights to the NLSC YouTube with the title NBA The Run, Anthony Edwards Highlights. So on the show, I'll be giving my hands-on impressions of the game. Positives, negatives, some constructive criticism, and I will provide recommendations on how I think they can improve the game. I also asked the community their thoughts on the early gameplay footage, which we will get to at the end of the show. But before we get started, I wanted to provide our audience with some quick facts about the game. It is set to release at some point in June on PS5, Xbox Series X and S, and Steam, with no price announced as of yet. What we do know is that it won't be free to play. On their website, it states that this is an online PvP game, with no offline play available at release. Though I have heard rumors that they may consider adding a quick match offline mode in the future. The game will not have a creative player feature at launch either. My understanding is that 18 people are actively working on this game, so it's not a big studio. Keep that in mind when you watch the footage. The initial player roster is 30 current NBA stars, with some examples being LeBron James, Steph Curry, Victor Wembanyama, Anthony Edwards, the Greek Freak, Nikola Jokic, etc. It will also be releasing with 5 original streetball legends. All players, Andrew, are handcrafted by the devs. The game also features multiple global iconic streetball courts. The games are 3-on-3 full court, just like the NBA Street games. If you are playing in NBA The Run tournaments, which is what the closed beta had you taking part in, the games will sometimes have different rules. For example, the classic to 21 by 2s and 3s and to 11 by 1s and 2s. But there were also other challenges that reminded me of NBA Jam on Fire Edition, like dunks are worth 3 and everything else is worth 1. It's a cool way to mix up the action, and I think you would agree, Andrew.
Yeah, there definitely seems to be a lot of potential with the game, as we've talked about on previous shows. I'm keen to hear what you have to say about the game.
And yeah, trust me, I have plenty to say about this game at this point. But before we move forward, I want to plead with the devs one more time. Please consider releasing this game with an offline quick match option at the very least. If you have programming in place related to AI, which it appears you do, this option should be viable. Think about the millions of gamers who want nothing to do with online play, or at the very least, want the option for offline play. Think about the parents who want to play with their kids at home. Kids and or teens and young adults who want to play with their siblings or friends at home or at a friend's house. Think about the college kids in dorms. Think about all the kids, teens, and adults who do not want to wear a headset, who do not want to be part of an online PvP atmosphere which can at times be stressful and or toxic. Think about those people who just want to have fun locally, offline, by themselves, or with someone in the same household. You are potentially missing out on thousands, if not millions, of consumers by not having a local offline option in this game. I've heard an uproar about it on the Discord. I've seen comments about it on social media, on Twitter, on YouTube, etc. This game not being launched with an offline option is going to hurt. That is my prediction. I think it will hurt. I also want to point out that this game, rightfully so, will be compared to NBA Street. It was announced as a spiritual successor. It has some of the development team from the Street series. It has the same announcer, Bobito Garcia, the same game formats, and many of the same mechanics. I have seen comments stating, that's the problem. You are comparing this game to NBA Street. It's its own game. While technically true, the comparisons should be expected and are also warranted. The look and feel of the Street games, for example, a game like Street Volume 2, was incredibly popular for a reason. And even when revisited today, it receives incredible praise. And when people post gameplay videos of the game, once again, almost all positive feedback and not just based on nostalgia, Andrew.
Yeah, and that's the thing. If you're going to bill yourself as a spiritual successor to NBA Street, if you're going to push the fact that you have former developers from NBA Street, people who worked on the original games, working on this new game, those comparisons are not unfair, or at the very least, not unwarranted. And I agree, as we talked about before, the fact there's not going to be an offline component to this game, at least at launch, is definitely a risk. It's definitely a turnoff for me.
So based on that fact and the footage that you've seen, for example, the footage that I uploaded, how much would you be willing to spend on this game if it is online only?
I still struggle to go above $20, or round it up to 25, 30 Australian, if you will. 20 US at the most. You know, there's obviously a lot of love has gone into this game. There is the detail with the challenges, the different street courts from around the world, a concept that I love from NBA Live 19's The Streets World Tour, as I've said before. But to me, there just needs to be a bit more meat to the game, or a lot more meat, actually, to charge any more than that.
I would agree. I love the fact that they're not going the free-to-play option because that just opens up the door for microtransactions.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And becoming a gotcha game and whatnot. So I'm happy that they're going to put a price tag on the game at launch, and then you just get the game. That doesn't mean there won't be DLC in the future or microtransactions in the future, but I love the fact that this isn't going free-to-play. I think I would be willing, like you, to potentially spend $20 or a maximum of $30 on this game, based on my hands-on experience and what I know about the features. But I do want to say that the devs are handling this preview season right. These playtests are excellent, Andrew. They are well run. They allow countless people to experience the game pre-release, and it's a great way for them to take in feedback. I had no crashes during the playtest, and getting into the games was quick and easy. The playtest included only a limited number of players for use. For example, Steph Curry, Anthony Edwards, LeBron James, Greek Freak, etc. I stuck with Anthony Edwards the entire time. Every time you started a game, you were placed into a tournament that you could progress through. I thought this was neat, and it added some drama that made the games actually mean something. It got the blood flowing. It's important to note that I played for an hour and a half, and overall I had a good time. I see the vision, Andrew, and I see the potential. I also want to give a shout out to some randoms I connected with during the playtest. My handle was No Look Dunk, an ode to D. Brown. But I had a tournament run with 2 Steph Currys where we made the finals. One of the users was named Delusion. The other was Beatrice Blitz, 22. These guys were so fun to play with. Great team players, consistently made the right pass, took great shots, didn't over-dribble, found me when I was jumping for oops. I had a blast with these guys, which also tells you that this game has some serious potential, because I could have fun with it. We lost in the finals 21-17, but the entire run was enjoyable because of them. Lastly, I played with someone named Flyer Bree. He was controlling LaMelo Ball. Again, great teammate, good on defense and offense, clearly had a good grasp of the controls because he pulled off some cool moves. And he's another guy who found me for oops when I was jumping. Connected with randoms the whole time, Andrew, and overall, that was a solid experience. I was impressed by that.
Sounds a lot better than the rec in NBA 2K. And I'm also impressed by how they've been running the closed beta. The fact that they were so willing to let people share their footage without vetting it or anything like that, you know, that shows a lot of confidence in the game. So that is certainly impressive. And it's certainly interesting to hear you talk about having fun playing with randoms, playing online, because traditionally you haven't been a big online gamer. Traditionally, I wasn't for many years as well, until I really got into 2K Pro-Am and the rec for a few years there. But can you see yourself playing online if this is the quality of teammates that you might encounter?
It's possible. I think that I'd still rather connect with you and maybe a couple other people from the NLSC community, you know, people that we interact with on the NLSC Discord. And the game does make it easy for you to connect with friends. You know, you boot up the game and there's the invite friend option, and then I can just send you an invite on Steam and boom, you're in the game with me, right? So yeah, I am open to that.
And look, not to put a damper on the situation, obviously with the closed beta, it is a group of really dedicated basketball gamers, probably people who know their stuff, people very passionate about the games, probably a decent amount of people who remember NBA Street and want to play the right way. Once it gets out into the wild, the wider user base, it may not be as fun. I remember having a blast at the NBA Live 16 community event, playing with all the other guys who were really into basketball gaming, obviously playing live Pro-Am. The home experience, not as good. Obviously, you've got the lag from online, which you don't have with the local network in the studio. But, once you do have that wider user base, the experience may vary online, as the ESRB rating reminds us on so many games. But that's still very promising that you had fun playing with randoms, that you could develop that chemistry very quickly.
Yeah, it was better than I expected. And you're going to hear my positive and negative feedback, my constructive criticisms, my recommendations and whatnot. But I do want to say that two things can be true. It was better than I expected. And at the same time, the game needs work, right? So let's get to my positives. The graphics are solid. The details and lighting are excellent, whether you're playing during the day or at night. The players look like their real-life counterparts and are wearing their accessories. Are the graphics out of this world, Andrew? Something we've never seen before? No. Is it taking advantage of the full capabilities of PS5 and Xbox Series consoles or PC capabilities? No. But I find it has a unique look, and the developers were clearly going for that, especially with all players being handcrafted by the devs. Overall, I like the look of this game. Number 2, the voice of NBA Street Volume 2 and beyond, Bobito Garcia, is back on the mic, and he is as good as ever. Sure, his voice sounds a little older as expected, but he still brings the excitement. He also has some of his old lines from the Street series. For example, I scream, you scream, we all scream for ice cream. Such a great touch bringing him back. It makes the experience far more special. The next positive, the soundtrack changes each time you enter a new game, which isn't a bad thing. I'm not a big fan of every tune, but it added some variety to the experience that is welcome. Next positive is shirts versus skins. Was this completely necessary? No. But I think it is a unique touch that this game will be remembered for. When it was announced that shirts and skins would be in the game, the reaction I saw was almost all positive. Shirts and skins games have always been a big part of Blacktop Hoops, Andrew. And that's it really for the presentation elements. How did you feel when you looked at that footage, when you saw my gameplay video? Do you like the look of the game?
I definitely do. The cel-shaded look, the stylized player models. I think that's great for an arcade game, this type of basketball video game. No problems with that whatsoever. Having Bobito Garcia back on the mic, a couple of decades have passed, voice has aged a little bit, but he's still strong on the mic. I do like the shirts and skins concept. That was one thing that really impressed us at the NBA Live 07 community event when we got the sneak peek at NBA Street Home Court. They made a point of showing us you can choose shirts and skins, and we're like, oh, that's really cool. Like you said, big part of playing on the blacktop, street ball culture, so I think that's the right move. Yeah, presentation, I think they've nailed that NBA Street-like vibe.
Down to the positives about gameplay. Jumping for oops works as it should, and in my opinion is almost identical to the NBA Street series with how it functions. I found myself jumping for them often, and luckily I was paired with teammates who normally found me. You can see me catching a lot of them on the gameplay footage that I shared. While there is a negative component to this, which I will get into a little later, the positive is that there is no shot meter. In this style of game, I think shot timing should matter, but it shouldn't be treated like a 5-on-5 sim. This is an arcade-style street game. People should be having fun, not staring at a meter. And I know you will love that fact, because you couldn't stand the shot meter in NBA Playgrounds and in NBA 2K Playgrounds too, and you thought it was completely unnecessary.
Absolutely. That's excellent news to hear that they're taking that old-school approach to shot timing. There is a place for shot meters. Maybe it could have worked in the NBA Playground series, but it can also lead to shooting being very harsh, very sim-like, as you said, which is not what you want to see in an arcade style of basketball video game, especially on dunks and layups. That was really overkill in the Playground series. And I noticed how many lobs you were catching and throwing down. I noticed a lot of lobs off the backboard, which suggested that they are fairly easy to pull off, and that's good news. That looked like a lot of fun.
And actually, throwing lobs off the glass is hard because of how fast the ball moves. It's hard to time it, but it is viable, and it does happen a couple times in my video. Next positive about the gameplay is going for steals, whether it be shoving or swiping. It feels rewarding and operates in a similar way to the Street series. Some people in the NBA The Run Discord believed shoving was a bit overpowered, but as Michael Young, one of the game's devs, pointed out, you need to pass the ball, which, as you know, Andrew, not everybody wants to do. Just like in Street and Jam OFE, shoving someone off the ball is also an important way to get steals or free up a teammate. I think these were strong elements in the Street series and was strong in NBA Jam on Fire Edition, and they are implemented well here in NBA The Run. I'm glad they brought those features back.
So you'd say offense and defense are well balanced as advertised? Because as we know, Derek, that is the hallmark of all great games, is having that great balance between offense and defense. And conversely, the hallmark of pretty much every bad basketball video game, the defense in particular, is not fun to play.
The stealing system is solid. The blocking system could use improvement, and I'll get into that shortly. I will say that shoving is unique in the way that it's tied to the right stick. You push the right stick forward to shove somebody, while swiping for steals is tied to a button. The next positive is the ability to block outside shots is a nice touch. It also makes up fakes viable. You will see in my footage a couple instances where I up fake on a 3, get the defender in the air, followed by stepping aside and shooting the shot. It made it so these guys who were trying to spam threes with Steph Curry, well, they had to make sure they had enough blue sky to shoot, otherwise it was getting sent back.
Is it like the original NBA Street games where you can goaltend, or is that in effect like NBA Jam?
So yeah, from my experiences during the play test, if you time it correctly, you can swat a shot out of the air right at the rim. So there is no goaltending.
I think that's a good way of Street handling it. I do like that there's goaltending in NBA Jam, that you do have a few more rules in effect because it is that exaggerated NBA style. But for NBA Street, I've always thought that's a good touch, being able to goaltend at the rim. And of course, it is pretty well balanced in the original Street games, hopefully as balanced in NBA The Run as well. But yeah, I'm actually a fan of that, being able to goaltend in the Street-style games.
I agree. Another gameplay positive is I love some of the poster dunks where one defender or multiple defenders go crashing to the blacktop. They even lay there for a second like a corpse. It is satisfying. I also like the self alley-oops, as well as multiple people going up for oops at the same time and being able to connect with them. And the fact that there is an off-the-heezy option. You will see that in my gameplay video, I go off the backboard to myself multiple times. It felt rewarding and makes for some great highlights. Another positive is the players, from what I saw, have their signature shooting styles. Curry shoots like Curry, Ant like Ant, etc. There's also another positive that I find unique for this game. Each game begins with a scrum for the ball. The ball is in the middle of the court, and you and your opposition are under your own baskets. After a 3 count, both sides race to the center of the court and attempt to dive on the ball to get the first possession. I actually love this. It's unique, and again, something else I think this game will be remembered by.
Yeah, that is an interesting approach. I don't think a tip-off would have gone astray. Obviously, a big part of basketball is worked in NBA Street, NBA Playgrounds, NBA Jam, other arcade basketball video games, of course. But yeah, like you say, that is something that separates this game from others, potentially in a good way. Intriguing.
Yeah, I mean, they could have gone for the whole shoot for ball thing, which is what really happens when you play blacktop hoops or pick-up hoops. Not necessarily a tip. I've never once had a tip-off in street ball. But yeah, I do like this unique approach. And I think that, again, that's another thing that this game will be remembered by. So this is both a positive and a negative. There are 4 advanced dunks in the game, but from what I can tell, no signature dunks. There are 4 ankle breakers in the game, but no signature ankle breakers. So it can feel a little generic. It can feel like the players are playing very similar to each other, but some of the dunks look great, and some of the ankle breakers look decent, like the spin moves and whatnot. There's also options for trick step back, trick spin, and trick push off. I also like the way the in-the-zone mechanic works. A few times when I was using Anthony Edwards, I got the posterizer in the zone feature. And what it did, it allowed me to push in the left and right stick together. And all of a sudden, I could go up and throw down bigger dunks and posterize multiple defenders, and they'll go crashing to the floor. I believe there's also defensive in the zone mechanics, depending on who you're using, which allow you to be more capable of blocking shots, etc.
Yeah, and that's been a staple of arcade basketball video games, that power-up that gives you that advantage. In the best games, like an NBA Jam, like an NBA Street, you've got those iconic power-ups. On Fire, of course, Game Breakers. And they've been fairly well balanced. Easy to get, or fairly easy to get, and satisfying to use, not necessarily overpowering. Definitely fun. Would you say that's the case with In the Zone in NBA The Run?
Yeah, I think so. I need a little bit more experience with that aspect of the game. What I will say is that it's not overpowering. I think that you can make some great highlights with it. I think that it can definitely swing momentum in a game, but it doesn't last too long where it's overpowering, and I like that aspect of it.
Oh, that's good. That's good to hear. Before we go on, a reminder that the NLSC podcast comes out every week on the NLSC, me-live.com, as well as our YouTube channel. We're also on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and other podcast apps. If you're listening on any of those apps, we'd greatly appreciate a review. To keep up with the show and everything we're doing with basketball gaming in general, connect with us on social media. On Twitter and Facebook, we are the NLSC. We also have an Instagram, NLSC Basketball, and on YouTube, we're youtube.com/NBA Live Series Center. Once again, visit us at nba-live.com, where in addition to the podcast, you'll also find all of our original content, as well as our forum and modding community.
So now let's get to the critiques. Take a look at any of the playtest footage. You will see that players have the ball in their right hand 99% of the time. It doesn't matter which side of the court you are pushing the ball on. It doesn't matter if you just finished a spin move. The ball is always in the right hand. The only time the ball touches the left hand of a player is if they do a trick move, but it only touches that hand for a split second before going right back to the right hand. Which brings me to my next critique. You will not see any crossovers in the playtest footage. Why? Because I don't think the mechanic exists. And I think part of the reason may be because of the right-hand dominance in the game. My guess is this game was heavily programmed early on with right-hand dribbling. And as you know, if crossovers are to happen, it means the ball has to go into the left hand and be controlled by the left hand after that hand receives it. Having a street ball game, especially one that is being marketed as a spiritual successor to the Street series, and not having a crossover control, in my opinion, is unacceptable. Crossovers are a big part of basketball in general, not just blacktop hoops. Same with going behind the back. I did not see any behind the back dribbles. Once again, no behind the back dribbling in a street ball game. I find that unacceptable. And again, I believe this mechanic is missing because it is tied into the right-hand programming. I worry that we are too close to release for crossovers and behind-the-back dribbling to be implemented, Andrew.
Yeah, that's something that jumped out to me, and obviously a lot of people who watched your footage and other clips of the game, that you don't have those dribble moves that NBA Street was so famous for. That was what separated it from NBA Jam. I love NBA Jam, as you know, Derek. Lean towards that series because I love the exaggerated take on NBA action, the high-flying dunks, shattering backboards, being on fire, etc. But a big part of the appeal of NBA Street was those street ball moves, the crossovers, the ankle breakers, the advanced moves like the slip and slide, etc. Pulling those moves off was so satisfying. It was representing street ball, obviously again with a bit of exaggeration, and the high-flying dunks as well, but pulling off those moves was such an integral part of the NBA Street series, so I am kind of surprised that it's not part of NBA The Run.
Yeah, and it's not just those moves. Obviously, a street ball game without crossovers and behind-the-back dribbling is a red flag. It's just the fact that you can't even switch hands on the dribble at all. Like, I'm dribbling up the left side of the floor, and the ball is just constantly in my right hand. That kind of looks ridiculous.
Yeah.
right? And a lot of people are pointing that out. There's a lot of people who have commented, do they ever dribble with their left hand? Why is nobody dribbling with their left hand? If you're pushing the ball and you're only keeping it in one hand, that looks weird. So it's not good for the visual aspect, and it kind of feels a little weird on the sticks. The next critique is the way the players run. Some have described it as hopping like rabbits. I think they move more like Bambi. Instead of moving or running like humans, the players bounce with each step, which makes the action look and feel awkward at times, especially because when you use turbo, your player doesn't look like they are necessarily achieving momentum and pushing forward. They just start bouncing a little faster with the same motion. It would be nice if the players moved more human-like and if acceleration actually felt like you were accelerating.
As an Aussie who grew up with repeats of classic Australian television shows, Derek, I would actually compare it more to Skippy the Bush Kangaroo. But either way you go, yeah, that bouncing animation was kind of weird, and a lot of people have noted that immediately.
The next critique is, in the version that I played, shooting was a bit overpowered. It felt like over 75% of the three-pointers that went up were going in, regardless of the player you were using. I'm guessing I shot around that percentage with Anthony Edwards. If you were playing against Steph Curry, well, it felt like over 90% of those threes were going in. Dunking felt very much secondary to shooting threes in most games that I played, which does not line up with traditional blacktop hoops. It would be nice if the game was a little more balanced, where threes couldn't single-handedly win games for teams over and over again.
That actually reminds me a bit of the first NBA Playgrounds. I felt that was a bit too outside-oriented as well.
My next critique is no layups. This game, Andrew, does not have any layup animations. Not one. No basic layups, no finger rolls, no reverse layups, no floaters, none of it. It's either a dunk or a shot animation. And I do understand that it's a small team. I understand only 18 people apparently are working on this game. But to have no layups, no layup animations, it looks awkward. Many people have pointed that out watching the footage. Are there any layups in this game? Why am I not seeing any layups? I think that that's kind of a flawed design choice to not even have one or two layup animations in there.
Agreed. Obviously, dunks are exciting. We want to throw down a lot in arcade games, but you also want to have those finger rolls, the up and unders, the reverse layups. You want to hear Babito yelling out butter, for example. So you absolutely need the layups as well, those softer finishes, those finesse finishes, as well as the powerful dunks.
My next critique is lack of dunk variety. There are some awesome-looking dunks in this game, Andrew, both finesse and power. But I found that I was seeing the same dunk consistently. And I feel like more dunk animation should be tied to the dunk button, which is also the shoot button. Like I said, nice-looking dunks, just a lack of variety. Next critique is sliding your feet on defense can feel a bit sluggish. And getting blocks at the rim can feel almost impossible, where you can go multiple games in a row without seeing one stopped or blocked dunk. This goes against what we know about great arcade and street hoops games of the past. Challenging people at the rim, snatching the ball out of the air, knocking them down, etc., have always been staples to the best arcade and street hoops games. And in my opinion, it's a necessary element to keep the action exciting, challenging, and fun on both ends. Some of the items that make this an issue in NBA The Run is the sluggish side-to-side movement, how fast players jump, they jump incredibly fast, and how quickly your turbo runs out. Also, oftentimes you will try to jump for a block even with turbo and your player barely gets off the ground. Defense needs to be as engaging as offense in these types of games. I really enjoy the steal system. I love the shoving, the swiping, etc. I like how you can block outside shots, but yeah, I think that blocks at the rim and knocking people down at the rim, I just think it doesn't happen quite enough.
And that is a big part of defense being satisfying to play and balanced, obviously. And again, that does remind me a bit of the first NBA Playgrounds and a bit of NBA 2K Playgrounds 2 as well, where if you weren't going to block a shot or a dunk, you just made that little hop. It felt very canned. Reminds me of the little hop when you were going to miss out on rebounds in NBA Live 09. You know, it's the opposite of some of the canned blocks in NBA Live 18 and 19. In those games, you could feel the block coming a mile away, whereas in other games, like Playgrounds, and from what you say, NBA The Run as well, you can feel the failed block coming a mile away.
Yeah, and you know what? It's not that we want to see Steph Curry knocking people out of the air.
Sure.
Right? It's not that we want Anthony Edwards to be overpowered as well, knocking people out of the air or blocking shots. And we still want to be able to catch lobs off the backboard and throw it down and, catch lobs in general and be able to throw it down in traffic. I'm not saying to make it overpowered. I'm just saying, maybe look at balancing it a little bit more where it can happen a little bit more frequently if you are able to time it appropriately. Also make it so that when you jump with your player, he doesn't just hop. He actually can jump with the height to block a dunk or to knock somebody out of the air, etc. And the last critique I have is passing works fine, but often looks awkward, where the ball looks like it is transferring from player to player. I threw a couple passes where I couldn't even see the flight of the ball. I understand that this game has a small development team and AAA animations can't be expected, but I think the way that passes are thrown and the look and speed of the ball between players when a pass is thrown could be looked at and improved.
I did notice that in your footage, that a lot of the passes, even if they look good as far as the trajectory, still seem to warp, zoom through the air a lot quicker than they should. Did make the action look a bit awkward here and there.
So now I just want to get to my recommendations, and then we'll get to the community's responses to this week's community question. Recommendations. Work feverishly on adding left-hand mechanics to this game. That way you can incorporate crossovers and behind-the-back dribbling moves. It will also help with the look and feel of the game when, for example, dribbling up the left side of the floor. Next recommendation is currently doing trick moves is heavily tied to holding down one of the left triggers and flicking the right joystick. This includes spin moves. The Y and B buttons, if you're looking at an Xbox controller, do not appear to be assigned to anything when not holding down a trigger. I recommend utilizing those two buttons. And the best use I can think of is to have the Y button be used for spin moves and the B button be used for crossovers, or going behind the back depending on the way your player is positioned and how you are moving. One of the biggest critiques of the footage is the lack of dribbling moves. It's a street ball game where you don't see people crossing over or going behind the back. It's a legitimate gripe, and I think it deserves attention. Next recommendation is add some layup animations to the game, even if only a few. Also, make shot blocking at the rim more viable, as I stated earlier. I'm not saying that people should be able to rely on Steph Curry as a rim protector, and I'm not saying that the current shot blocking system is broken. What I am saying is make it so worthy defenders can jump higher and have more of an ability to knock the offensive player out of the air or to swat a shot midair. Next is the running animations, with turbo or otherwise, are a big critique of the game right now. It is a big enough turnoff where many have said they wouldn't buy for that reason. Attempt to make it so players bounce less, having them move more like humans. Also, as stated earlier, try to smooth out the passing animations if possible. And lastly, expand the player roster at some point. I know that this was the closed beta playtest, and a lot of the players that are going to be in the release, they weren't available during this playtest, but seeing so many of the same player is kind of a turnoff at times. I enjoyed playing with the two Steph Currys that I played with, but I feel like that is going to be a common thing. I think you're going to see people online and they're going to be playing with three Steph Currys, or there's going to be two of the same player on one team and two of that same player on another team. And I just think that the player roster isn't big enough right now to avoid that issue. And the last recommendation, once again, is what I stated at the onset of the show. Please think about all the offline gamers out there, the people that want that option. Think about adding offline quick match at launch, if possible, if you have the AI programmed, and if not at launch, soon after the game is launched.
Those sound like great suggestions, and I hope the developers, who do sound like they're open to constructive feedback, are willing to take that on board. Adding offline modes, probably easier said than done, but definitely a big deal, and cleaning up those gameplay issues, getting those street ball moves in there, achieving that balance, that polish that you talked about, absolutely vital. And before we get to the community responses, I'm seeing a lot of people saying NBA Street is back, and of course you pointed out some comments from people saying you can't compare it to NBA Street, ironically, and it's a new game, etc., which I get. And I also get wanting to support this game. And it's been a long time since we've had an NBA Street game. Some would say it's been even longer since we've had a really good NBA Street game. So I get the anticipation. I get wanting to see this game to succeed. I would like to see it succeed, obviously, as I know you would as well. But it's okay to criticize. We saw what happened with NBA Playgrounds and NBA 2K Playgrounds 2. People saying, oh, it's not NBA Jam, it's not NBA Street, downplaying every bit of criticism, constructive criticism. And we saw what happened with that series. These days, hardly anyone is talking about that series. With the impending shutdown of the servers, hardly anyone is playing NBA 2K Playgrounds 2. It is okay to constructively criticize these games, to point out ways that they could be better, to say that, oh, I like this, but I don't necessarily like that. It's not hating to say that, Derek. And again, I know people want to look forward to this game, which they absolutely should. I'm not trying to dampen anyone's enthusiasm if they're really enjoying what they've played or have seen, but people who may have critiques, like the ones that you've shared, Derek, are not doing it to hate on the game. They're doing it out of a love of basketball gaming, knowledge of what makes great basketball games, and a desire to see this game be as good as it can be. So, I absolutely get being hyped, but let's not shut down criticism either.
Yeah, and I think the developers are listening, right? And I love that. They're taking in feedback. They've already implemented some feedback, and I will admit the game was better than I expected. You know that I wasn't exactly optimistic after seeing the trailer footage, right? After seeing the early footage of the game. But it's clear they made improvements, and overall I had a good time. But at the end of the day, they need this feedback. The other piece of this is first impressions are so important. And I want this game to be awesome out of the gate. I think that it's been a mixed bag so far as it relates to how people feel about the footage, and you'll hear that in a second when I read the community's responses to this week's community question. And sometimes that happens when you put yourself out there, right? They put themselves out there. They've been heavily marketing the game. I think they've done a great job marketing this game and getting NBA The Run into people's minds, into their wish lists, etc. But yeah, first impressions are very important, which is another reason why I wanted at least an offline quick match option to be looked at release. It's also important to note that not everybody goes online just to say negative things. That's another thing that people try to say. It's like a cop-out, right? It's like, oh, well, people only go online because they want to be negative. The amount of games that are on Steam that are either overwhelmingly positive or very positive is staggering. There are so many games that people leave nothing but great reviews on, and that's because the game's hit with these people. The gameplay is great. They like the presentation. They like the depth. They like the attention the devs paid to the game, etc. And so, no, people are not just going online to say bad things about a game. There are countless examples of people going online and stating, hey, this game looks great. I love this game. I enjoy playing this game. I'm going to pick up this game. So spare me with that BS. I think that the critiques that I've heard about this game are often incredibly valid, and I hope that the developers are listening, and I think they are.
And it certainly is promising that they are so open to that feedback, for sure. And like you say, first impressions are so important. You know, we've talked about how NBA Live on 8th generation was better than a lot of people think. You know, didn't always look the best, but was still pretty fun on the sticks. But people still need to have the desire to give it a go, which they won't necessarily have if it doesn't make that great first impression, if it doesn't capture the imagination and impress with that first look. With that in mind, would you say that NBA The Run plays a little bit better than it looks at this point?
No, I wouldn't say that. I would say that it kind of plays how it looks, to be completely honest, as it relates to the animations, the lack of dribble moves, not seeing any layups, all of that, the way the players are bouncing, all of that. You can feel that, right?
Sure.
You can feel that on the sticks. You can feel that the lack of variety sometimes. Sometimes the helplessness when somebody goes up for a dunk, etc. Yeah. That's stuff that you can feel, and that's stuff that you can see. Like, I think the graphics are great, the atmosphere is great, the courts look awesome, etc. But, yeah, it kind of plays how it looks. But I will say, overall, I had a pretty good time.
Oh, that's fair. And I've enjoyed games that are a bit janky before. You know, I played a lot of NBA Live 15, Derek, so maybe I will enjoy it. Certainly brought up some positives, and the game does have potential, so, yeah, I'm still intrigued.
So let's get to the community's responses to this week's community question. I asked, NBA The Run is set to release next month. Thoughts on the gameplay you have seen? And if it's online only at launch, would you still buy? If so, what would you be willing to spend? And I noted that it is cross-platform multiplayer, which I think is important and a nice touch. Josh at Sport Gaming 24 states, I like that it's been made and it's promising for the future, I suppose. But after watching the play tests and everyone's videos on the game, I'm not going to get it at launch. I was underwhelmed. I'd just rather play the old NBA Street games. And that's the thing. NBA Street games are still viable. You can get them for the consoles, or you can get them for the emulators, or both, and you can have a blast with those games. And those games, from a gameplay perspective, especially a game like NBA Street Volume 2, is, it's still stronger overall on the sticks. Zyro Streams at Zyro Stream states, free or how much? So he's curious about the price. Like I stated, it will not be free to play. That's what the devs stated, but they haven't announced price. Sunset X at Sunset X states, looks like a good wish list item. I'll wait for updates and buy at discount. Roke at Roke M states, compared to NBA Street Volume 2, this game is very generic. Every player has the same gameplay animations. The rim and backboard doesn't move on massive dunks. Doesn't seem players have signature moves or dunks either. Don't see the hype for this one. And yeah, I think that there are signature jump shots in the game. Curry doesn't shoot like Ant Edwards. But yeah, there's a lot of people that think it looks generic. Takale Johnson at Takale Johnson states, it needs more control to dribbling. And yes, I agree. I think they need to utilize that Y and B button, or on PlayStation, it would be triangle and circle. I think that those buttons not being utilized is a missed opportunity. I also think that there was opportunity to potentially use the right stick for dribble moves outside of holding down the trigger, kind of like NBA Live.
Yeah, people want that depth to the gameplay, as well as the modes, obviously.
IVB125 at IVB125 states, it looks okay. There's no dribbling, I haven't seen any fun dribbling. Everyone is just running back and forth generically. Looks okay, that's about it. And yeah, some of the gameplay footage I've seen, people aren't doing any dribble moves at all. I watched about a 10-minute video of somebody showing off their closed beta gameplay, and I didn't see them do any dribbling moves. I mean, this is a street ball game, and I feel like if the controls made more sense and there were more options for dribbling in the game, that person would have been doing dribble moves. Grind Till I Shine at Quante 8 states, I think pushing it back a few more months wouldn't hurt, but hey, that's just me. Thinks it needs more time in development. Cameron at Cameron_2523 states, I really want to try it on console, so he's excited about the footage that he's seen. KF2K _success at KF2K _success states, I have a PS5, going to start buying physical from now on and only buy digital on huge discounts. So he's going to wait for a discount, more than likely, on this game. Terry at Terry Chimobi states, definitely want to get this game, but the online only is definitely an issue for me, because what if no one has any internet to play online? I think they need to address that. We should have options for either offline or online play and the ability to play locally. And I completely agree.
Yeah, that's the big thing for a lot of people, the online only. And what happens when the online support ends? This game is unplayable.
Manic at Ace de Wave states, they need to be able to chain dribble moves together. Secondly, he states, have more physics on the rim bending when dunking. I will agree with him. The rims are stiff. You go up for a big dunk and the rim doesn't even move. The backboard doesn't move. That kind of stinks. He continues, have more dunk animations, but ends it with, all in all, it went pretty smooth. No hiccups with connections either, so it sounds like he was part of the playtest. So it's possible that he still had a good time.
And I have seen a couple of people talk about the rim bending or not bending. Some people have brought up, some rims don't bend on street courts. But I think in a basketball video game, it's exciting to see the rim bend and the backboard shake.
Yeah, maybe not to the level of NBA Live 2002.
Sure.
That was pretty insane. Written Words by Me at Written Words by Me states, the idea is great and we need this for this new era of arcade games. The problem is, looks like the replay value will only be online. Not enough players, dunk animations, or dribble packages. No story mode. Could have been dope, and also pay homage to the legends of the streetball courts if they added them into the game. The likes of Jack Ryan's, Earl Manigault, Skip to My Lou, etc. He continues, hopefully it'll sell well. Has to be less than $30. And then the sequel can add more stuff. looks cool. So he has some optimism, but he thinks there's some missed opportunities. Russ Adams at Big R 1028 states, I'm very interested, but I'm out until a single-player mode is established. Also depends on price. So another person that wants that offline component, Andrew. Noble at Noble_OG states, not playing if it's online only. I pass. Mac states, this game should be free. And I don't think you want that, Mac, because if it's free, more than likely there's going to be microtransactions heavily tied to it.
And that's a bit harsh. I mean, there are obviously some teething problems with this game, but a lot of love and effort went into it as well.
Agreed. I can tell. I played the game. I can see the effort. XXT Stealth 31XX states, it had so much potential, but they fumbled the bag. Where's the crazy crossovers? This version of NBA Street, the movement looks stiff. And yeah, a lot of people are not happy with the movement, the way the players bounce around, just the quality of the animations. Again, reminder that from my understanding, only 18 people are working on the game. But at the end of the day, it's being put out there, right? It's going to be released. It is 2026. People are in their right to have expectations.
Yeah, and we have seen independent games with excellent animations, with great polish. And like you said, they are selling this game, so criticism is absolutely fine. Like I said before, I understand being hyped about the game, but the criticisms that people are sharing are generally constructive, certainly understandable. And to that point, the anticipation that people have built up for a new NBA Street game, or a spiritual successor, as the case may be, they want it to be at least as good as the games we got 20, 25 years ago. So yeah, I understand people being a bit disappointed. Once again, first impressions are so important.
Yeah, and that's part of the problem is, to a lot of people who played NBA Street Volume 2, for example, who revisit it from time to time, or who haven't even played it in 20 years, or people that have seen footage of it on YouTube or other social media platforms, they expect a game made almost 25 years later, Andrew, to look better, right? To play better, to have at minimum the same amount of dribble options, the same amount or more animations, etc. And I think it's a problem for a lot of people that this game is coming out in 2026 and it's being dubbed an NBA Street spiritual successor, and it doesn't look as smooth or as good as, say, a game that came out almost 25 years ago. There were also some comments on my NBA The Run closed beta gameplay footage on Twitter, and I wanted to get to some of those. Derek at Chalkboy_Wonder states, this game is dope, but I hope they add soundtracks for 90s eras, 2000 eras, 2010s eras, and today's era, and the gameplay got to have more fluidity like how V2 and V3 did. But overall, this game looks fire. Neon and Butch Gaming at Stildo33, friend of the show, he states, I can't wait to torch you at that. He just wants to kick my butt on this game. He's very competitive. Hopefully him and I can go head-to-head if he gets it and we both go online. Chaddington at Chad Hanna states, based on what I'm seeing, this is giving off more of an NBA Jam type game. Gameplay-wise, this doesn't speak NBA Street at all. And he's saying that because he's not seeing that this game looks like street ball, right? He's not seeing street moves that he would expect. He's not seeing the crazy crossovers and, you know, the slip and slide and all of that stuff. And so I kind of see where he's coming from there.
And even NBA Jam 2010, NBA Jam on Fire Edition, and Midway's successors under different names like NBA Hangtime, even they had an array of dribbling moves and spin moves and so forth. So to not have any of those moves in a street game is definitely a choice.
Yeah. The crossovers on NBA Jam 2010 and NBA Jam on Fire Edition are awesome, too. I love pulling those off. Papa Shark at Foreign Rico 1 states, definitely not fluid enough. Where's the smooth movement, trick moves, and physics? They have the street devs helping, so what's going on? LOL. The graphics are valid for sure, though. Steven at DWade117 states, the more I watch this, the more I don't want to play it. The animations are awful. Looks like a mobile game. I've heard that a couple times, that people think it looks like a mobile game. At Wari7 states, sluggish as F. If it doesn't have the same smoothness, aka fluidity, of NBA Street, this is effing garbage. Sneakerholic states, if it's going to be like NBA Streets, then it needs more moves, more dunks, better passes, like make it look like NBA Street ball, but updated.
I'm sensing a theme.
Yeah, not a lot of positive feedback here. At Yo Average Joe states, one thing that annoys me is that the basket goal doesn't move whenever dunks happen. It lacks physics. Not saying it has to be exaggerated like NBA Street Home Court, but make the game feel alive. G.Fresh at G_Fresh_TV states, this ain't it. Naruto180 at Naruto180 states, they got to make dunks feel more impactful. Protect Your Neck at Joey's World T states, physics are ass. And LT at Els49 states, not gonna lie, this looks garbage. JJ at _DOSJ states, looks solid to me, not bad. Maddie Clips at Maddie Grizz states, unfortunately, this isn't going to move the needle for basketball games. Reminds me of AEW Fight Forever a little bit. Awesome concept and puts fun over everything, but I can see it getting old quickly. Plus, the animations don't look all that great. Hope they keep working on it. And John Alves at JAlves_82 says, it better not be online only.
We have some bad news there about it being online only, unfortunately. And that comparison to AEW Fight Forever, I think is apt, because that was a game that tried to recapture the AKI wrestling games from the 90s, like WCW versus NWO World Tour, which I know you've played, Derek. I know you're not really into wrestling, but I do know you've played that one. They were very popular at the time, and its sequels as well. Also, it ended up getting the WWF, now WWE, of course, license with WrestleMania 2000. No Mercy, of course, a classic, very popular, and there have been wrestling games that have tried to recapture that style, and Fight Forever did just that, and people felt that it fell a bit flat as a result. You know, whether it was simply not capturing the feel, or they replicated parts of that game that hadn't aged well. Either way, they felt it wasn't the right approach. Obviously, WWE 2K has many problems of its own, but trying to recapture that old AKI feel didn't work out for Fight Forever. And here you are trying to replicate NBA Street. Again, people can say don't make those comparisons, but when you're a spiritual successor, those comparisons are inevitable, and it does seem like they haven't captured all of that NBA Street vibe. There is a lot of NBA Street vibes to the game, but the lack of dribble moves, that street ball flair, is definitely a problem.
There was a second part of this community question I wanted to get to real quick. I asked, if you have already played NBA The Run through playtesting, how did it feel on the controls, and what are your thoughts on the presentation? Did receive a couple of responses. Euron Ramos states, dribbling needs work, and a couple other minor things like inconsistency with grabbing loose balls. Other than that, the game is fun as F. Manic at Ace to Wave states, controls felt fine. They just need more dribble and dunk animations, and I definitely agree there. Maybe chain dribble moves together instead of doing one after another. And then finally, Royce, friend of the show, states, controls I can't speak for. It seems fine when you were playing. Graphics are good. I like the courts and settings and the atmosphere around the courts. The players and courts look terrific. I like having Bobito back, but not a fan of shirts versus skins, but it is unique and old school. I still don't like the having to be online. I can't see playing the game where one of my teammates, if I may quote KG, dribbles the absolute air out of the ball, or they jack up a three near half court. 30-odd players is small, but I understand why the company did it. He states, I would like to see legends, more players, baby WNBA stars added to the game. I like seeing El Gigante in the Spirits of St. Louis windbreaker. That is a worthy show of respect to the ABA. I would like to see away jerseys or clothing in place of skins or as a choice. He continues, the scrum for the ball to open the game is strange. Either jump ball or call like heads or tails or make it an option like it was in NFL Street games. Also, an easy joke, if I may, about SGA being in the game. Not a good idea. He foul hunts and flops so much that he needs free throws. And lastly, part 5, I do look forward to seeing more from the NLSC community and D for free, and seeing more as the game's release date approaches. I would like it to be successful so we can get more basketball video games. So thank you, Royce. Again, another thoughtful response. And yeah, SGA definitely foul hunts.
Yes, absolutely. And he brings up a point that obviously you actually had a good experience playing with other people in the closed beta, but as I said earlier in the show, once you open up that user base, you get everybody on the game, you are going to get those people who don't know ball, and that do play selfishly, and don't want to play the right way, and it's going to be more of a mixed bag playing online. So that is the other drawback of being online only. You are really relying on other people playing the game to have a good time, and unfortunately, the results aren't always going to be good there.
Yeah, and I read something about at release possibly there being a solo versus the AI mode, but you'd obviously still need to be connected to the internet, from my understanding, where you can jump into a game and just play against the AI, but that's still not local multiplayer, right? That's still not offline play. That's not people being able to play together in the same room, or you to be able to do an offline mode solo. So yeah, I find that this game being online only is a pretty big problem, to be honest. Probably the biggest problem at this point. There were some responses real quick on Discord related to the original community question related to how they feel about the footage. Shy Guy states, looks okay. I will likely buy on launch unless it's $70 for some godforsaken reason. I have not spent my money on a video game in 6 months. QB1120 states, this might actually be my first basketball game purchase since NBA Live 19. Depends on price. If it's $35 to $40, I may buy it on release or wait for a sale. If it's more than that, I'm definitely waiting for a sale. Maz states, call me crazy, but I don't love that it's shirts versus skins. Feels tacky. Just program home and away jerseys. No need to get too cute. So those are the responses on Discord. I do want to point out, too, real quick, that another critique that this game has had is that there are games like from the NBA 2K series and from the NBA Live series, which featured Live Run, where people stated that blacktop gameplay looked better than this game, which is supposedly focused on blacktop gameplay, right? It's focused on street gameplay, and that's a red flag for some people. Basically, people stating, I could jump into an NBA 2K game and play blacktop, or I could jump into one of these NBA Live games and play blacktop, and it's going to feel better on the controllers. And I can do the dribble moves that I want to do, and the animations are going to look better. So I think that's also a valid critique.
Yeah, and I'd throw 24/7 mode in the older NBA 2Ks in here. Had a blast going back and playing those modes in 2K6 and 2K7, especially 2K7, actually. So, yeah, kind of a red flag.
So did we receive any responses on our other social media platforms?
Yes, we did have a couple of people weigh in with their thoughts on Blue Sky and Facebook. On Blue Sky, Chauffleur Sanders says, I might have to buy this next. So enjoyed your footage, Derek, and is encouraged to buy the game.
That's a great sign, right? And there were actually some positive comments on the YouTube video that I uploaded showing that playtest footage. For example, Luxor Husku 2609 states, even if the game doesn't gain a lot of attention or fumble with its live service management, I would still prefer playing this over 2K any day. I yearn for arcade basketball games to return, and the Run is the game that I've been waiting for since NBA Playgrounds. Some good ball play there, Derek. I hope you enjoyed your time with the beta. Can't wait to hear you talk about it on the next podcast if that's coming up. Can't wait to get my hands on it if there's a beta for consoles in the future. He also mentioned that he liked the soundtrack as well. Central NBA Live Bolton 7399 states, not bad, it looks pretty good. Is it me or their characters bouncing too much? So overall good impression. Didn't like the way the players were running. Sluggy Sport states looks good. Live King stated showing out. So yeah, some positive reactions to the YouTube video.
Yeah, and I think people are willing to give it a chance, even if it does look a bit janky. You know, we want competition in the space. We want alternatives to NBA 2K. Even if we had NBA Live, we'd still want to see NBA Jam, NBA Street, or spiritual successors to those games. So we're still happy to see NBA The Run come out and obviously grab the NBA license, as it did. Jumping over to Facebook, a couple of comments from people who aren't as thrilled. James says, looks slow and clunky. And I Heard You Steal Source says, I ain't seen one crossover. And that has definitely been a recurring theme with people who haven't been too thrilled with the footage, Derek. That lack of dribble moves, that lack of street ball flair. So obviously some mixed opinions coming out of the closed beta, but once again, you know, shout out to Play-by-Play Studios for being so willing to put the game out there and let people share their footage, not vetting it. They're not issuing DMCA takedowns of people's footage if they don't feel that it shows the game in a good light. They're not doing anything petty like that. They're obviously open to the feedback. On this show, Derek, you've obviously provided some excellent suggestions that I think a lot of our fellow basketball gamers would certainly agree with. So we'll see how this game turns out.
Yeah, I mean, I'm probably going to pick it up. I hope they don't overprice it like NBA Bounce. I think that the sweet spot for this game might be $20. max $30, and I think that would get a lot of people picking it up. However, I just think they're missing out on countless consumers because of not having offline capabilities.
No, completely agreed. But thank you to everybody who responded to Derek's community question, weighed in with your opinions about NBA The Run as it stands today. As always, Derek, great having the community as part of the conversation.
Yeah, a lot of great detailed responses from the community. Love when they weigh in, and that's the pulse of the community.
With that being said, that has brought us to the end of this week's show. Thank you for tuning in, and a reminder that you can catch us every week on the NLSC, our YouTube channel, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and other podcast platforms. Also, both we and the NLSC are on social media, and would appreciate a follow. So Derek, go ahead and plug the handles.
You can reach me on X, formerly known as Twitter, at D43G and at D4384. I'm also on the NLSC D43 and on YouTube D43.
As for me, I'm Andrew in the forum and Andrew NLSC on X and Blue Sky. The NLSC is on X, Facebook, and Blue Sky at the NLSC. We're also NLSC Basketball on Instagram and Threads. We're on YouTube at NBA Live Series Center. And of course, give a look to the NLSC itself, nba-live.com, for all things basketball gaming. So, thank you again for tuning in, and until next time, I'm Andrew.
And I'm Derek.
Go get buckets, everyone.